Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the most recent Bacalhau community hours. This is the first of 2025, so I hope you've all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. I hope you're all rested. I hope you're all excited for new times. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what everyone has been up to over the holiday period. We here at Expanso and Bacalhau, we also had a wonderful time, but that doesn't mean that we weren't still hacking away and having a great deal of fun building out projects, demos, features, PRs with the latest and greatest in distributed computing software, which is Bacalhau. Let's go over the agenda a little bit today of what we have for this session. We've got a lot of good stuff for you. We've got 2 demos that we're going to show off and some conversation pieces we're going to have as well. But yeah, let's quickly go over the community hour session. So I'm just going to share my tab real quickly. So for those of you who are fresh to the Bacalhau Community Hour, we have this agenda document here. It just gives you all the information you need. You'll have followed it to get to this call, but you can also propose items, and we do track what we'll be discussing and the outcomes of these sessions over time. And so today, again, our main agenda is Dave and I. I'm Dave, my CEO of Expanso, David Aronchik. He's going to be doing a demo along with myself. I'm going to be doing a demo where we do compute over data with large language models, and Dave's going to be using DuckDB to process remote data with a bunch of devices in a bunch of different places. It's going to be really, really cool. If you have any questions about these demos or about Bacalhau, please leave them to the end. We will happily have plenty of time at the end there to cover the subject. And if there's anything that you want to add or suggest to the agenda for future community hour meetings, then we would love that. Bacalhau is all about community, and we all have a stake in this. So if you want to talk about something, then it's an open forum. Please do drop it in our document here, or use our Slack channel. We have the Bacalhau Slack, which I will drop some links to later, that will let you get access to the huge Bacalhau community of developers and those of us who are working actively on building out Bacalhau day in, day out, because we love it and we think you do too. So most recent news, end of last year, we, for those of you who weren't paying attention, released Bacalhau version 1.6.0. That would be Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the 4th release we had last year, right?
Yeah, that is correct. We follow the Kubernetes lead of doing quarterly releases. Ship faster, smaller releases is our motto. But even with that, still packed with features. Definitely check it out.
Absolutely. There was a whole smorgasbord of fun things to see in Bacalhau 1.6.0. And I think the thing that sticks out most to me, and I hope people on the call agree, that with each release things get faster, better, but also easier to take advantage of the capabilities that Bacalhau has. One of the things that we've been working very hard on to make Bacalhau one of the simplest platforms to get started with is we introduced an alpha version of a brand new cloud platform, the Expanso Cloud. Now, cloud can mean lots of different things in lots of different contexts, but in this particular instance, Expanso Cloud is currently offering in its alpha version a managed Bacalhau orchestrator. So those of you who are familiar with Bacalhau will know that there are, for the most part, 2 main types of nodes in a Bacalhau network: the orchestrator and compute nodes. So the compute nodes are where your distributed workloads are executed, great from on-prem, great from the cloud, great from the edge, great for pretty much any device that can run containerized or WASM jobs wherever they are in the world. But the orchestrator is the part of the network which makes sure that jobs that you define that you want to run in a different place get to where they need to go. So if there's unreliable network conditions, it ensures that a job will run in that on those computers it needs to whenever there is intermittent connectivity. It'll ensure it gets those results back. It will reschedule and schedule things dynamically. But it's one of those things where you need to have a fixed point of reference right now, so that the compute nodes know where to find a managed orchestrator. And we thought that was something that we could quite easily, quite comfortably put together that would make it a lot simpler to spin up Bacalhau networks. So do go out and check out Expanso Cloud. We have a wait list currently, and that is growing, but we are letting people in as fast as we can flip the switch, as it were. If you have any questions, again, or ideas about how to use it, we'll actually be using Expanso Cloud a little bit today. So we'll have a little bit of demo in the LLM demo. But if you have any questions or ideas or thoughts, we'd love to hear those too. Always happy to soundboard the art of the possible, as well as our kind of thinking behind it. Because again, that's how we think great products are made, by talking, by listening, by sharing. Bacalhau is open source. We dev in the open. We love when people see what we're doing, when it resonates with them or it doesn't resonate with them, and then we have a great conversation about how we can make this brilliant. And in fact, Dave, as I understand it, we just had a very interesting PR come in for some potential new features in Bacalhau with regards to sharding jobs across nodes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So one feature that we often have heard from customers is the idea that I'm trying to run my jobs as though I'm spreading a single job across many nodes that are all isolated. Now, part of the elegance of Bacalhau is that it enables really truly embarrassingly parallel jobs. That's the computer science term for jobs that can operate on their own independently without any other issues or internode connectivity or anything like that, which is both good and bad, right? If you have that kind of like isolation, it means no single partition of the job can take your nodes down, which is great. But on the other hand, it is also can be quite bad because what it means is that if you need to inform one job that another job has picked up this portion, or whether or not it finished, or whatever it might be, that can be a real challenge. Folks solve this a lot of the times by having a centralized system outside of your orchestrator. So this wouldn't be something, for example, that Kubernetes or Databricks or Spark or whatever might provide. This would be something separate. Google has written many papers about this, and you go read about it, using things like etcd or Chubby or whatever to achieve this. We felt like we should mount in the awareness for every job to understand where it is in the overall holistic aspect of the job, which means, like, let's say, hey, Bacalhau, I want you to go tackle this, 10 terabyte data set. I want job 1 to handle, 500 gigabytes. I want job 2 to start at 501 gigabytes through 1 terabyte, so on and so forth, all the way up, right? So 20 total jobs. How do you tell each job what to focus on? And that's where we're like, hey, you know what? We actually know that, and we can tell that to the job itself. Hey, just so you know, this is where you are. So this is overall called execution and partition level environments. It's in main now, so it will appear in 1.7, which will be due quarterly as per usual. And we give you a bunch of different environment variables along the way. Here's the partition index, how many count, so on and so forth, your ID, the overall job name, kind of both higher level awareness of what's going on and low level awareness. And so you can see all that code here. It's checked in, working, tested, of course, just like the rest of Bacalhau. We never get anything in that we don't consider to be enterprise ready, but we are more than open to other feedback if it comes. And we would love folks who see this, if you have any thoughts or ways that you would like us to extend it in a particularly interesting way, go check it out. But as per usual, we publish we work in public. Here it is. It's pull request 509. You can see it by clicking on the pull request and seeing closed pull requests, since this has now been merged. But please do go check it out. We would love to get your feedback.
Yeah, we will put all those links inside the agenda doc after this call as well, everyone. So if you're worried about missing out where these things are, don't worry. There will be hard-coded HTTP links for you all to find and go and check these things out. But Dave, I think that's probably enough of you and I talking in the abstract and about the future and the past. I think now it's probably time for a little bit of demo. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
Cool. Okay, fab. I've actually got a little bit of slide deck here to kind of show off what we're doing today. This is something I've been working on for a little while now. This week basically, which enables people to compute over data with large language models. So compute over data, again, it's the kind of the core of Bacalhau, gives you the ability to move your workloads to where data lies, so that you can keep your data secure, in place, not have to egress gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes of information to do something useful with them. It makes way more sense to send small workloads or workloads that are going to be vastly smaller than your huge data sets than to move a huge data set somewhere that you can process it. And large language models are an ever-growing way that people are choosing to interact with their data, whether it's through doing intelligent ETL or just trying to understand the shape of data, as it were, or even just trying to put a almost human face, as it were, on things that can seem quite abstract and remote to people who aren't familiar with the data set. So I've made a very, very simple demo today. And oh yes, I've written it all down on the slide for everybody. But yeah, why is Bacalhau great for this? Well, again, it enables secure execution of LLMs on device. Because all of applications in this particular instance are containerized, because Bacalhau locks down what a container can access, whether it's parts of the file system, whether it's whitelisting certain domains for access over the internet, or completely blocking out network access altogether. You have that control inside your existing controls that you have for where your data lies. Also, one of the things that make this an interesting and perhaps even more applicable approach to a lot of people is there's no requirement here for you to move your data to a third party. A lot of the development and adoption of large language models over the last few years have been in third-party services, things like OpenAI, things like Gemini, all these open platforms, but they still might require the transfer of data to somewhere else for you to understand what's going on with it. That's time-consuming, that's expensive, and importantly, it's not necessarily the most secure thing. There are enterprise tiers for these bits and bobs, but they're very expensive, very hard to get started with. So we thought, why not show people that they can take the latest and greatest and the best of open source large language models, which compete with those commercial offerings on many levels, and show people how they can be done on device, in place, without having to move anything anywhere, keeping within all the security systems and roles and governances and policies that an organization set up, both at the software level, at the network level, and at the organizational level. So what does that look like? So you've got several different components here. I have built a lovely little web UI, which does sit in the public cloud. It actually sits in a, I think, Heroku instance right now, because it's nice and easy to get things started up with. But essentially, that is the user's ingress point to query the data. The information we have today are just some really simple Wikipedia pages that I have bundled up that I can ask questions about, but they're all living on different instances. I think I've got 4 instances across 4 different regions across 2 cloud platforms right now, where you can load up a connection to those devices and query the information about what's going on there. But how is Bacalhau and Expanso Cloud in this mix? See, you can't have a public cloud application hooking into this data directly, because this is a secure network environment. Getting anything in any large organization's network is practically impossible. It has to be audited, it has to be tested, has to be brute pen tested again and again and again. It's hard. But with Bacalhau, again, we've worked very hard to make it a very secure, very trustworthy piece of software. We're used by so many organizations where data integrity and security is not just like a nice to have, it's absolutely mission critical. So on each of these devices here, there actually is a Bacalhau client, a Bacalhau agent installed on them, which have access specifically to the data that I want to read. So I don't have access to the wider system. I don't have access to the network beyond being able to access this single connection here, this connection point here. And I'm able to orchestrate those jobs with Expanso Cloud. I'm going to show you all that in a little bit of a second there, but essentially Expanso Cloud exists within the secure Bacalhau network where all these connections are encrypted between the nodes, so that I can say, I have this application that has an LLM that I want to push to these devices here and run inference over them, and then, where applicable, have a bidirectional ingress-egress to have a conversation with the LLM through this public network here. But again, these connections are also all encrypted, and you can go one level further than I've done here. You can actually generate public and private keys if you want to make sure that whoever's having a session is only able to see their session and communicate with the data that they're having with right now. So that's good fun. How do we do this? Again, we're using open source for this one. So our Bacalhau Job, which I'll show you the document file for in a second, is using Ollama. For those who aren't familiar with it, Ollama is essentially a an application, a tool that allows you to pull down models from the Llama, I think it's called Marketplace or Store, whatever it is, let you run those open source models on device with a common API between all these different models. So you can switch dynamically between the models you have. We're going to be using Llama 3.2 today, but you can use a whole host of other ones that have vision capabilities, that have specialities like Code Llama or Small Thinker, which is a new one I just noticed, which is quite good for deductive reasoning with a very low footprint. And of course, we've bundled that into Bacalhau along with our applications. So we have our job, which is inside a container, which essentially has OLlama and our code application in there, which allows us to run the LLM over our data in place and then egress that to that public point here. But that's enough talk from me. It's time for a demo. So I'm just going to switch over my tabs real quick. So as you can see, I have a big old empty dashboard here. It is, I like to think, pretty in its simplicity, but nothing's happening here right now because I haven't deployed any LLMs to any nodes. But when I do, I'll be able to select from the left here, from the list, the nodes that I want to interact with, which will be Bacalhau jobs running an application hooked into my public application via WebSockets, essentially acting as a relay between the Bacalhau job and my client application. So I can communicate encrypted between my Bacalhau job and each node, as well as the client there. But I need to deploy that job. I need to put Bacalhau on those nodes, and I need to deploy that job to those nodes. This is going to be a little bit of a, here's one I made earlier, because I have made this very simple with Expanso Cloud. So let me just spin that up real quick. So again, we launched Expanso Cloud just under 3 weeks ago, and I think 2-3 weeks ago. And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite ways to orchestrate Bacalhau networks online. You can see here that we actually have a Blue Sky bot, which we're currently working on running through Expanso Cloud. It completely makes sense to do that. But importantly, we have the LLM network. And in here, I can get an overview of what the network is, how many nodes are connected. So I have, before this session, hooked up 4 nodes with Bacalhau clients through Expanso Cloud, meaning that they are encrypted, that they are secure, that they are configured and ready to go. And with that, I can very, very simply, I can just see that they've got some capabilities in there, settings, jobs, and whatnot. But with that, it makes it trivially simple to push jobs to where I need to go. I have a fixed point with the managed orchestrator in Expanso Cloud. I have my compute nodes ready to work over the data I want to access them to. And all it takes is a single CLI command to do that. So I'm going to show you quickly the job file that I have. It's incredibly simple. So we have a very, very simple application here. I have my job.yaml file, and I have bundled all of this up into a simple Docker container, which essentially bundles up this LLM node application here. It's just a JavaScript file. I used Node because it has an OLlama library. It's very simple. It's very easy to get started with. But let's walk through a little bit about what this does. So essentially, when the job spins up, it'll either have an environment variable or default to essentially a relay address. So where is it going to connect to get bidirectional communication between the user and itself? That is going to be the Heroku application I have going on there. I can give the node name. I can have a target directory. So this is where I can say for each node that I want you to be able to access this particular file system or this particular folder on the file system. And again, brilliantly, it can be read-only because Bacalhau enables that. Then all it does is it goes and creates a tree of those files and directories and creates essentially a RAG. So we do a little bit of pre-prep here. We say, hey, you are Expanso Neuro, that's the name of the project I'm calling it for now. We tell it how we want to understand these files, and each of those files get loaded in plain text. As I said before, these are just little copy pastes from Wikipedia, nothing too fancy because we don't have a huge number of GPUs spun up to run these sort of things. But it'll map through, it'll put those nice little order there, and it is importantly a system prompt. which has slightly more weight than a user prompt. So it's essentially us establishing to the model that, hey, this is us telling you all the information you need to act in the way that we think you want to. It's not so much part of the discourse, it's about more your operation. We get to that point, and then it's just a matter of hooking up to a WebSocket, that relay, that public application I have, and running those models for any message that comes in on that local model is there. And there's a couple other things as well about announcing that you're on the network and announcing that you want to reset or whatnot. But essentially, this is what's happening here. And to make this as simple as possible, I'm just going to show you real quickly how to run that job. It's something we've shown you 1,000 times before, but I love it because it's so simple. It hurts sometimes at how good it is at it. Of course, I'm in my directory. All I have to do is run. Oh, this toolbar's in the way. All I have to do is say, hey, go run that job, and it's going to go run that job. Now, I have pre-warned those nodes with this container before, so it shouldn't take too long to get spinning up there. But what I can go and do is I can go and check out Expanso Cloud real quickly and show you that that job should have been scheduled. And again, this is part of the joy of Expanso Cloud. Like, I love the CLI. I think the thing I spend the most time in my life on the computer is a terminal, but when something is visual and I can just get a list without having to type anything, it is really nice. And we should be, yeah, there it is. My LLM job has been spun up and it will be currently executing, which is nice. So that's beautiful. So I think that's been enough time for my job to get going. So if I go back to my lovely fancy web UI that I've built, and I refresh it, I should hopefully have a list of nodes. Hurrah! So I configured each node to essentially give itself a name based on the text file, what kind of content it has in there. But each one of these items on the left represents a node in the Bacalhau network. So now I can click on one of those, essentially establish connection between my client and the Bacalhau node, which has access to that data in place, and ask questions of it. Now, the first request takes a little while because it's just kind of spinning up and provisioning memory for it and whatnot. These LLMs take a little while to get going. So I'm just going to ask you something real simple, like what kind of files do you have access to? And it's going to take, I think, about 45 seconds for this first initial request to kind of get going, but the subsequent requests afterwards are much, much faster because it's all kind of preloaded in there. So yeah, it's just going to take about 45 seconds to think about that. And then we can ask it some other questions in pretty quick succession. Cool. So it's describing that RAG file. And yep, it's correctly identified that it is in fact the planets that I have information for. So let's ask you some questions. Which is the biggest planet in our solar system? Again, this is more of a trivia thing right now, but you can do this with CSVs. You can use any business critical data. This is just kind of what I had to hand there. But again, Jupiter's diameter is 11 times that of Earth. We'll have to confirm that later. I'm sure its mass, 2.5 times of all the other planets combined. That actually kind of fits, I think. But yeah, so this is a temporary session. If I were to click away from this and click to another one, then I would there's nothing stored anywhere here. Dave, do you have a question about the inner solar system that you'd like to know the answer to?
How cold does the dark side of Mercury get?
Oh, let's see. Will that be in the introduction to the Mercury Wikipedia? Hang on.
I don't know.
Let's ask it. Let's ask it of Mercury. Yeah. Now, this is where we have a lovely little feature in there. That RAG that I set up earlier on, I specified that it can only answer information about from the questions it has with the data that it's got in those files that it's read. So people worried about hallucination or things being imagined. There are always going to be slight risks of that for now, but it took me literally 10 minutes to tease out, hey, if you don't know, just say you don't know. Maybe like tell me other things that are relevant, but be honest about it. Which I think is very, very important when it comes to these sort of things. What I'll do is I'm going to switch over to another node, and I'm going to finish with this demo. So tell me, what files do you have access to? Again, there could be anything. I'm just doing it because I've forgotten what files I had. Actually, find a commonality between all of the files you have, all of the data you have. So that's nice and vague, deliberately so. Let's see how it gets on there. Oh, look, everyone had their birthday today on January 9th. Isn't that funny? Do you know which other famous person has their birthday today, Dave?
I don't.
It's me. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
I set this up like 20 minutes ago, so I'm quite pleased this actually works. But that's pretty much the demo. Again, I live and work in the esteemed company of Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, Richard Nixon, and Paolo Nutini. Who is the oldest of all of these? All of those. Fortunately, it's not me. It should be. So, okay, yeah, Richard Nixon. There we go. So, tiny bit of deduction reasoning there from Llama 3.2. But that's it. That's how you compute over data with large language models and Bacalhau. You know, I managed to deploy neural networks, large language models to 4 nodes in less than a minute, and have questions in a secure environment that let me interact with and understand my data, and pat myself on the back as well in the meantime. So that's that.
Very cool, Sean. Very, very, very cool.
Thank you.
I know tons of people who are interested in how to run ML models next to their data, for all the reasons you described: the security, the preciousness, the regulatory issues. If you have to like upload your stuff into a central repo before you run it, again, you know, you get around all of that by taking advantage of the topology. So a terrific demo.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's not the last demo, though, Dave. I believe you have an absolute banger as well.
Yeah, so absolutely. We're actually out of time. Well, excuse me. We're not out of time, but I want to give enough time for the audience to ask questions. So I will record this demo and we'll share it offline. But let's take a moment now. We'll turn off the recorder so that no one has to be on our permanent feed here. And we'll ask questions for the community. But terrific demo, and look for the video in just a minute.
Wonderful. Yeah. All right. We'll turn the recording off. Thanks, everyone. See you in a sec.